Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer and welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know of all the board games launching on Kickstarter and GameFound over the next week. And if you're new to the channel, we do this every week going over all the upcoming campaigns, so if you want to stay up to date, this is definitely the place to be. And if you appreciate the effort of me going through these every single week, I do appreciate a like and subscribe down below. But before we get started, I do like to go over some new news and discoveries I just found out about over the past week, and I don't have a whole lot to go over, but I do have something that I think you might be interested in, and that's that we do have a launch date for the continuation of the South Tigris series, which is a continuation of the West Kingdom series coming from Garfield Games. And this is a series of games that a ton of people love, and I think 3 of them are in the top 100 on BGG. So if you're a fan of the previous games, or if you're just interested in a dice worker placement game, because the South Tigris games are all focused around dice worker placement, this is definitely a game that you'll want to check out. Of course, I will be covering this as soon as it launches, so as always, make sure to subscribe down below if you want to stay up to date with everything as I find it. And that's it for news, but as always, go ahead and check out Board Game Co. if you haven't already. We just started the month of February, and I do these videos every week, but Alex over at Board Game Co. does them every month, so he just put out his video going over all the games that we know about so far that are going to be launching this month. So if you want to see a little bit more into the future, you'll definitely want to go check out that video, and I'll have a link to his channel in the description below. And that's it for an intro, so let's check out the campaigns. And the first campaign we have launches on February 6th, and this one is called Bound, and this plays 2 players and takes about 5 to 20 minutes to play. And this one is a small abstract strategy game that uses a pentacle-shaped board. And if you know what that shape is, I am impressed, but it is basically a circle with a star in it. And in this game, each player has 4 pawns out on the board, and each turn you're going to be able to move one of your pawns. And the goal of this game is to try and completely encircle one of your opponent's pawns first, and if you're able to do that, you'll win the game. And something to note about this campaign is that it will be a print and play, so there's a really low cost to entry, and to play the game all you'll have to do is print off a sheet of paper which will have everything you need in order to play the game, as well as some really cute and fun animal artwork. And as always, if you find this campaign interesting or any other that I have to mention here today, you can find links to them in the description below. And launching on February 7th, we have Statera, and this plays 1 to 4 players and takes just 30 to 150 minutes to play. And this one is a scenario-based game, with each scenario having its own complete story, and each scenario is tailored to a certain player count, so depending on the players that you have available, you're going to be choosing from different subsets of scenarios to play. Once you've chosen your scenario, you'll be setting it up, which will tell you the victory conditions for that scenario, as well as the map setup, the story, and any specific rules for that specific scenario. And there are a few interesting details with this game, with the first one being how the asymmetry works. Just like in a lot of other games, your own tribe is going to have special abilities or bonuses that are specific to them and might make playing that tribe a little bit different than the others. But this game puts another layer of asymmetry on top of that, because not only can you play as the different tribes in Statera, but you can also play as the gods. And the thing about the gods is that they're also asymmetric amongst each other, but they also play completely different than the tribes. So not only do you have asymmetry between your different powers, but you also have asymmetry between the different playstyles as a whole. And if you're playing as one of the tribes, you're going to be using your cards on your turn in order to perform different actions, to place or move meeples out on the main board, or even to attack the other players. And battle in this game works with the amount of presence that you have in a given location, and your total strength is going to be a combination of your units there, as well as any cards or abilities that you can stack or modify on top of that. And players will be assessing all this to determine which player has the highest strength at the start of a battle, but then you'll be alternating back and forth, playing 1 card on your turn if you choose, until both players pass, and then the player that has the highest strength once both players have passed is going to be the winner of that battle. But if you're playing as the gods, things are going to work a little bit differently, and this is where another really interesting aspect of the game comes into play, because this game offers a fully functioning set of scales, and the gods are going to be using this to determine which of them has the most followers or believers. Of course, having more followers is going to make you a more powerful god, and it's going to open up different opportunities to you, but the way that the scale works does vary from game to game, so if you're playing as the gods, your actual gameplay and the behavior of these scales could change up a bit. And if this one sounds interesting to you, I have the link down below if you want to go ahead and learn more, and if this does look like a game that you might be interested in, make sure to follow along with the campaign, because you'll get a free token added to your pledge if you do decide to back it in the end. And launching on the 7th, we have another exciting one, because we have set a Watch Forsaken Isles, and this plays 1 to 4 players and takes about 60 to 90 minutes to play. And the reason I say that this one's exciting is because this is a series of games that a lot of people in the board game community really love, and this one is a standalone expansion, just like the previous release, which was Swords of a Coin, and this one's completely combinable with Swords of the Coin as well as the original game. And if you're not familiar with this game, this is a cooperative game where each player is going to be playing as their own character with their own special abilities and often their own unique dice. And players are going to be working together, rolling their dice and using their different abilities in order to fight back against a river of monsters at 9 different locations. Each round begins with revealing the next location card, which can also have some special effects on all the players, but then there's always going to be one player's character that they're going to have to choose to stay at the camp while the rest go out and fight the monsters. And the character that you decide to stay at the camp is going to be able to take their own specific camp actions, which will allow them to do things like rest and refresh their board or heal their health, as well as swap out their ability cards with maybe another ability card that they have off in their supply. And this is a really important aspect of the game that you'll want to time appropriately, because you'll get the most bang for your buck by sending back the characters that have done mostly all that they can in battle. But some characters do fare in battle better than others, so you might even just want to send a character back just to tend to the fire, and then all the other players will be rolling their dice for their individual characters and then assigning those, as well as using their different abilities in order to inflict damage on the different enemies that show up in the river of cards. And if the players are able to survive the night, you'll be swapping out the character at the camp with another character and then moving on to the next round. And this new expansion is going to be adding a new concept to the game centered around creatures being able to generate something called Doom. And this Kickstarter is also going to be offering a big box solution as well, so you can store this game as well as Swords of the Coin and the original all in a single box. And along with the big box, there's also going to be a brand new fully replayable campaign introduced where players might discover new heroes while other heroes perish, and you'll also be able to find mythic items for each of the characters as well. Really exciting news for those of us that are a fan of the series, so if this one does sound interesting to you, don't forget you can find out more in the description below. And also launching on the 7th, we have Stonesaga, and this plays 1 to 4 players and takes about 60 to 120 minutes to play. And this one is our Discord pick of the week, and I think it's for a good reason because there's a lot to like about this game. First of all, the artwork looks amazing, but it also has a few really interesting elements, and I'll get back to the most interesting one at the very end. And this one's a cooperative campaign game where players are playing as a tribe of people living in a remote glacial valley full of harsh conditions and deadly monsters. And something that makes this one really interesting is that each game session that you play is representing a new generation passing. And the players' decisions and their effects on the valley and the surrounding area will be inherited by the following generations. Each character is going to have their own stats in health and energy, and characters can grow old and die, but they can also die without growing old. And in order to win the game, each scenario is going to have certain objectives that the players are trying to fulfill as they alternate between a day phase and a night phase. And the day phase is where players are going to be taking the majority of their actions, but their whole goal here is to explore the different terrain, which each offer different areas that you can interact with to do different things like fishing, hunting, mining, or foraging, with each of them coming with their own unique minigame. Of course, there's a few other things that you might discover as well, but essentially players are using this phase to gather water and food and different resources. And the night phase is where players will be able to use the resources that they collected to eat, drink, and heal their wounds. And if you're able to pull together a campfire in this phase, you'll also get different bonuses and other actions available to you. And this is also the point in the game that has my favorite mechanism. I'm a huge fan of the survival theme and trying to pull different things together to try and create something useful. And I think the way that this game does its crafting is possibly the best I've ever seen, and it's one of the reasons that this one is my own personal pick of the week. And I think it's going to do a really great job capturing that feeling of players trying to do the best with what they have, both by combining different resources together to create outcomes that are really predictable, for example, a stone and a stick, but then also by allowing players to get creative by introducing other elements into that mix, or combining things together that they're not sure exactly what they can create with it, but sometimes you just have to try. And the way that this system works is that each of your resources are going to come in the form of a token, and then each of those tokens are going to have a series of different icons around them. And players will take their tokens and pair those icons together in order to create a pattern of icons. And you can do this with any of your tokens as long as you're matching those icons, but when you do, you're going to be taking those icons and creating a bit of a lookup key, because all you have to do is grab the crafting book provided by this game and then look up that combination of icons in the booklet, and it's going to tell you which item you created, and each of those items will have an associated card with it, and you'll just have to go and grab that card. And these tools that you'll be building are going to be super important for building up a community and putting the best foot forward for your following generations. But there's one more thing that does happen in the night phase, and that is the drawing of a night event for each of the characters. And these are usually not a good thing and can require different skill checks or challenges to be completed by the players. But those aren't the only events in the game, because there's also an activity track that's going to be increasing throughout the game, and when that activity track hits certain milestones, it's going to be triggering a specific event for that scenario. And this can be good or bad, presenting opportunities or affecting some or all of the characters. But this also works as a bit of a timer, because if players want to win the scenario, they have to complete all their objectives before that activity track reaches its end. And as always, if you want to know more, I do have links in the description below where you can go ahead and check out the campaign page, or if it hasn't launched yet, you can click to get notified. And also launch on the 7th, we have something a little bit different, which is an RPG, so I won't be spending too much time on it, but this one's called Vault. And the thing that makes this one different is that it's going to be combining fantasy elements in a cyberpunk world. And the story for this one revolves around an ancient race coming back into the world to try and claim it from the humans. But with them making their way back into the world, they also brought with them the possibility of magic. Players will have to make all sorts of decisions and fragile alliances, and of course, if you want to know more, I have links in the description below. And launching on the 7th, we have Storm Dragons. This plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 15 to 30 minutes to play, and this is a campaign that I thought was launching a couple weeks back, but it got postponed until now, so I'll just go ahead and roll that previous footage for you now. And this is a competitive card game where you have two types of cards. You're going to have storm cards and you're going to have dragon cards. At the start of the game, you split the entire deck between all the players evenly. And then at the start of each turn, you're going to be drawing 5 cards into your hand. Whichever player has decided to go first is also going to get the day token, and they can decide whether to start the game on the night side or the day side, and I will come back to why that's important in a minute. Because on a player's turn, you're going to be deciding to play one of the cards from your hand, and you can either play a storm card or a dragon card. The storm cards play a little bit more simple because they just add additional strength to whatever cards you currently have in play, but then you can only play up to 3 dragon cards, and when you do that, you're going to be playing whatever ability is on that dragon card, and then assigning it to either the head, the wings, or the tail. And the different dragon cards can have different strengths or abilities depending on where you decide to position them in that stack, as well as depending on whether or not that token is flipped to day or night at that given moment. But anytime that a dragon card is put into play, all the players have to determine which player currently has the strongest dragon, and then they're going to be gaining the challenge token. And the reason it's really nice to have the challenge token is because if you have that token, you can trigger a challenge at any moment, and then whichever player has the highest strength in combination with their dragon and storm cards is going to be the winner of that round. And then at the end of the game, the player that has won the most dragon cards in the stack of cards that they're able to win is the winner of the game. And as always, I have links in the description below. And launching on February 7th, we have King's Tricktakers. This plays 2 to 5 players and takes about 30 to 40 minutes to play. And this is a trick-taking game, and it follows your usual trick-taking rules where you have to follow the lead suit if possible, and the highest value is going to take the trick. But an interesting aspect of this game is that you don't really alternate trump suits. Instead, there's a specific card that is pretty much always trump, which is the black colored cards. But then there's also 2 special white cards that act as a wild suit, and you can play them anytime. One of them is called the rare card, which just beats all other cards out on the trick, while the other one is the white flag card, which makes you always lose the trick. And I always love seeing all the different ideas that designers come up for the different trick-taking games, and this game does not disappoint, because you're going to have your base set of cards that you're going to be playing your tricks with, but then at the start of each game, you're going to be drafting a set of character cards. And these are going to be doing different things like giving you special abilities or even scoring potential. And although some of these can be played into a trick, these do not go into your hand of cards. Instead, these just remain on the table face up for all the players to see. And there are some rules to drafting these cards, but at the end of the draft, each player is going to have a bid card that could have one or more number of tricks specified on it. And the way that that card works is that it's essentially a bet that if you're able to win exactly one of those numbers of tricks, then you'll get the associated victory points. But then each player will also have a queen card with a special ability that you can use once per round, and then also a king card that you can only use once per game. The king card is the highest card in the game, so if you do play it and there's no other king cards, then you will win the trick. Catch here is that when you play a king card, you do flip it over after the trick, and it does have a number of victory points associated with it, and the only way that you get those victory points is if you didn't use the card. So you do have some incentive not to play your king. And the game continues like this until there's no cards left to play, and then the player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins the game. Also launching on the 7th, we have Blueprints of the Mad King Ludwig, and this plays 1 to 5 players and probably takes about an hour to play, and this is the roll and write version of the game The Castles of the Mad King Ludwig. And the way that this game works is that each round players are going to be choosing a room card from the market and then drawing it onto their lock grid. And whenever you do this, you can flip, rotate, or mirror it however you see fit, but essentially you're trying to connect it to an existing doorway. Because when you connect all the doorways of a room, you're going to be progressing on the track associated with that room type. This is going to grant you access to the special ability of that room, but then it's also going to score you victory points at the end of the game. And these abilities can give you extra turns, allow you to move, add, or remove doors from the different rooms, expand your lot in different directions, or even build a moat. And players will be gaining victory points for the different room types that they're able to build, as well as their courtyards, which are the empty spaces between their rooms, as well as other special objectives specified on their score sheet or on the bonus cards. And as always, if you're interested to learn more, I have links in the description below. And the next campaign is also launching on the 7th. This one's called I'm Not Afraid, and this is a 2-player game that takes about 15 to 30 minutes to play. And I couldn't find a whole lot of information on how this game plays, but it looks like you're going to be gaining victory points for completing different objectives, as well as controlling different locations by using dice rolling. Each location specifies a number of victory points that you'll gain if you're able to control it, and the game ends when a player has 5 or more locations in their possession. At the end of the game, you add up all your victory points, and the player with the most wins the game. Also on the 7th, we have the next campaign coming from Board Game Tables, which is going to include a few different games, with the first one being Sail, which is a 2-player cooperative trick-taking game where players are going to be trying to reach their destination before the Kraken brings them down to the bottom of the sea. Each round begins with players being able to freely trade cards amongst each other, and then they're going to try to win tricks against the Kraken. But players will want to remember which cards they gave each other, because different game actions will be triggered depending on who wins each trick, in combination with the unique character skills that each character has, and players aren't allowed to communicate during this portion of the game. And the next game in this campaign is called Couture, and this plays 3 to 6 players and takes just 20 minutes to play, and this is a competitive Broadway card game where players are going to be trying to draft different cards each round, but each of the players are also attempting to win rights to first choice of those cards by winning the fashion shows in the various cities. And players are going to be winning those fashion shows through an auction mechanism by using those cards. And also in this campaign, we also have the game Chomp, which is a dinosaur tile laying game where players are trying to lay tiles to create herds of herbivores or carnivores of 3 different sizes. When placing a tile, it always has to overlap some amount of another tile that's already placed, and adjacent dinosaurs of the same species will eat together or die together depending on if they are connected to a food source. Players are going to be gaining victory points for each of their fed dinosaurs at the end of the game, and the player with the highest score wins. And finally, this campaign is also offering Mindspace, which is a polyomino game with 5 different shapes representing 5 different emotions, and players will be rolling dice and using cards in order to determine which shapes can be used each round, and you're going to be adding those to your own personal brain board, gaining victory points for completing sections of the brain, completing different goals, and meeting certain criteria. And as always, if you want to look into any of these games in more detail, I have links in the description below. And those are all the campaigns I have for you this week, but don't leave yet because we still have a couple awesome giveaways to announce, and these are the easiest giveaways to enter ever. All you have to do is leave a comment down below, and that will get you automatically entered into the giveaway. And the first giveaway we have is for a pledge for Witchbound, which is a really interesting and unique solo game that takes inspiration from those classic point-and-click video games. In this game, players are going to be exploring a world with each location represented by a single page. Each location can have a whole bunch of different prompts that players can interact with, and each of these prompts has a number value associated with it. Players' actions also have a number associated with those as well, and when you want to interact with a certain prompt with a particular action, you're going to be combining your action number with that prompt number and then looking it up in a booklet to see the outcome. And as you play the game, you'll discover even more actions as well as different items that all have their own numbers associated with them. And just like your actions, your items and spells will also have a number associated with them, and you can also interact with the prompts by combining those numbers. Players will have to deduce which items, actions, or spells will allow them to progress the story by interacting with these different prompts. And even though this is a solo game, I think it'd be really easy to include another player and try to solve these puzzles together. This is going to offer the core game, all unlock stretch goals, as well as all additional add-ons. And to enter this giveaway, just leave a comment down below with the hashtag witch, and let us know who your favorite witch is. For myself, it's definitely Stevie Nicks. And if that doesn't make sense to you, you should probably watch the third season of American Horror Story. And the next giveaway we have is for a pledge for Deep Shelf, and this is coming from the same designer and publisher of the game Dinogenics, which has been quite the hit in the board game community. And this one is also an engine building board game where players are going to be gathering different resources, but in this case you're gathering them from the ocean floor. And one thing I should mention is that there is also an overprotective sea monster that doesn't like you stealing all their resources, and if you happen to push a little bit too far, well, that monster is going to have some good reasons to try and attack you. And the game has all sorts of actions that all feed into each other, with you exploring the seabed, gathering different resources, and then processing these resources into buildings, which you can then use to perform other actions. And this giveaway is also for another all-in pledge, so I just want to thank the publishers for donating such awesome pledges for these giveaways. And this is for the Deep Kelp pledge, which is going to come with the Deep Shelf core pledge, all stretch goals, and all premium add-ons. And to enter this giveaway, just leave a comment down below with the hashtag DEEP, and I want to know, what is the best seafood? Is it crab, is it lobster tail, or is it oysters? I really love crab and lobster, but the fact that oysters are just expected to come with hot sauce or horseradish, so good. Or is there some seafood that you think ranks even higher than those options? Leave a comment down below so I can go and try those. And the first giveaway was for Batman Escape from Arkham Asylum, but because the publisher postponed their campaign so long, they actually reached out to me and let me know that they were no longer able to fulfill this giveaway. But I know a lot of you entered this giveaway, and I'm not one to leave you all high and dry here, so let's go ahead and I'll still draw a winner for this giveaway. And because I can't offer you this Batman game anymore, I'll just grant the winner 100 entries into every giveaway that I do on this channel until you win a giveaway. And 100 entries is a lot. And I use this application here to draw a winner, and all these extra names down here are bonus entries from my Patreon subscribers. If you like this sort of content, you want to support more of it and make all these efforts just a little bit more sustainable for me, I do have a Patreon down below. It also gets you bonus entries into these giveaways, which is never a bad thing. Let's go ahead and draw those comments and draw a winner. And the winner is Steph Kortchuk, and this is one of our Patreon subscribers. Unfortunately, we can't do the Batman giveaway, but this is going to grant you a ton more entries into the future giveaways, which means that you will win again very soon. And whenever that happens, I'll reach out to you and let you know that you won that giveaway. And the next giveaway we have is for Roll for the Great Ones. And we're going to do the exact same thing here. Go ahead and draw those comments. And the winner is Ryan Picklesimmer, and this is actually one of our viewers who won a previous contest that granted him more bonus entries into a giveaway, so congratulations Ryan. I'll reach out to you and let you know that you won yourself a pledge for a Roll for the Great Ones. And that's everything for this week, but we are a month into the year, and I'm kind of curious if you have backed anything on Kickstarter so far. I haven't backed anything yet. I probably would have backed Andromeda's Edge if I wasn't already such a big fan of Dwellings of Eldervale, but I think I prefer that theme more, so I'm going to be sticking with Dwellings. I think I might back Fork for 10 bucks. It looks like a really fun trick-taking game, so this is probably the best contender so far for me. But I'm curious if you backed anything or if you think there's something that I should check out in more detail, so feel free to leave a comment down below. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.